This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The devastation of almost relentless bombardments on the Nahr al-Bared refugee camp in northern Lebanon has been revealed in new pictures that have come out of the camp.
The Lebanese army has maintained some of its heaviest shelling over the camp for 2 days now. And Al Jazeera understands there's been ground combat between government troops and Fateh al-Islam fighters. Tanya Page has more.
Fateh al-Islam fighters carefully planning their next move as the sound of Lebanese army shelling fills the air. Rare pictures from inside the Nahr al-Bared camp reveal the extent of the damage, but there's still enough walls standing to provide some shelter from the eyes of the Lebanese army. As the dead and wounded are counted, there's no let-up in the artillery fire and no sign anyone here will give up their fight. Outside, civilians carefully move from street to street, weighing up the risk of staying in the same place over the possibility of finding a safe haven, if only for a short time. A former brigadier general in the Lebanese army says it's no surprise the military has had such trouble fighting those holed up inside the camp.
In order to fight such a training, you need time, you need experience, you need the practical experience, and this army does not have such kind of things, training as well as equipment. It is under-trained, it is under-equipped, so that's why it was like a surprise. But I think that after this war, we will have another army, another, trained personnel or trained soldiers.
It's unknown exactly how many fighters and civilians are still inside this small pocket of Lebanon that's become a battlefield. With houses and apartment blocks reduced to rubble, thousands of refugees who used to live here have again been displaced. When the fighting is finally over, there may be nothing left to come home to. Tanya Page, Al Jazeera.
Our correspondent Zaina Khodar is just outside the camp and has been watching the firefight.
We do know from where we're standing that there's still snipers. We do hear the gunshots. We hear a lot of machine gun fire. Sources telling us that the Lebanese army is continuing to engage Fateh al-Islam fighters inside. No one knows how many fighters remain. Estimates range between 60 to 250. It's very difficult to confirm from where we are standing. In that footage, you also see the suffering of the Palestinian civilians who were trapped inside for weeks. A lot of them not receiving proper medical care, a shortage in food and water, aid agencies confirming that to us. At the same time, most of the civilians, and this is again according to aid agencies, have been evacuated from the camp, the latest batch on Wednesday, and these aid agencies telling us that those who remain inside are basically the Fateh al-Islam fighters along with their family members, their wives and children. And the Lebanese army is still continuing to shell the camp with heavy artillery, and we do know as well that they're trying to advance and push deeper into the older sector, the old camp, where Fateh al-Islam is basically fortifying their positions and operating from. Zaina Khodar, Al Jazeera, on the outskirts of Nahr al-Bared.
In all of its previous prisoner swap deals with Hezbollah, the largest of which took place in 2004, Israel has refused to release 3 Lebanese prisoners in particular. These 3 prisoners were supposed to be released in this deal, but the Israeli government decided not to do so, thus putting the future of these prisoners on hold. The kidnapping of the 2 Israeli soldiers last year triggered the devastating Israeli war on Lebanon. But in the eyes of the prisoners, this war has created a window of hope for freedom. The following report sheds light on the most important prisoner swap deals between Hezbollah and Israel.
Hezbollah fighters managed to kidnap 2 Israeli soldiers in this area on July 12, 2006, which was the spark that ignited the Israeli war on Lebanon. The stated objectives of the kidnapping operation were the following.
The kidnapping operation was originally named the Freedom Operation of Samir al-Qantar and his brothers. But the name was too long, so some suggested that we call it Operation True Promise, in reference to our promise to Samir and his brothers. I say to Samir and to his brothers, your freedom is just a matter of time. Negotiations, discussions, and passing through a difficult time, and God willing, you will not stay there much longer.
Nasrallah mentioned the names of Lebanese prisoners who stayed in Israeli prisons despite all prisoner swap deals between the two sides. The history of prisoner swap deals between Israel and Hezbollah started in 1998, when the two sides reached an agreement through international mediation, upon which Hezbollah handed over to Israel the remains of Tamar Elia, in exchange for the release of 60 Lebanese prisoners and the bodily remains of 40 others. A more important prisoner swap deal took place in January 2004 through German mediation. Israel released 24 Lebanese and Arab prisoners, including two prominent leaders from Hezbollah, Muftaf Dirani and Sheikh Abdel Karim Abed, as well as a German national who was accused of collaborating with Hezbollah. The deal also included the release of 400 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. In exchange, Hezbollah released Al-Hanan Tunebom, a retired Israeli military officer who was kidnapped under mysterious conditions. Hezbollah also handed over to Israel the remains of 3 soldiers. Now there are ongoing negotiations through German mediation to release the 2 Israeli soldiers who were kidnapped a year ago, in exchange for the releases of Samer Kantar, who has been in Israeli prisons for 30 years, as well as 11 other Lebanese who were taken as war prisoners following the Israeli war on Lebanon in July 2006.
We hope that the prisoner swap deal will happen as soon as possible so I can return to my family.
Sarah Al-Dandarawi, Al-Arabiya.
Sarah Al-Dandarawi, Al-Arabiya.
What does Lebanon look like 1 year after the July war? This report sheds more light.
This was a pivotal point in the history of Lebanon. At this particular point, Hezbollah carried out an ambush inside Israeli territory. As a result, 3 Israeli soldiers were killed, 2 others were kidnapped, and Israeli patrol vehicles were set ablaze. 1 year has passed since July 12th. 1 year has passed since Israel launched a war on Lebanon in response to this operation. Hezbollah did not realize the huge impact that its operation would have. This was acknowledged by the Secretary General of Hezbollah in a speech he made after the war. Therefore, he did not know the scale of the Israeli response to the operation. That response was very harsh. Lebanon paid a high price. Nearly 1,200 civilians were killed and more than 4,400 people were injured. The Lebanese army lost 50 martyrs. Hezbollah announced that 270 of its fighters were killed during the confrontation. Civilians lost a lot as a result of this war. 974,000 people fled their homes to safer areas. Houses collapsed. Villages and towns were totally destroyed. Reconstruction operations continue until today. To further pressure members of Hezbollah, Israeli warplanes did not spare the bridges or roads leading to various towns, nor did they spare the international Rafiq al-Hariri airport or the ports. After 1 year, the ghosts of death continue to reside in the fields, the roads and villages where there are cluster bombs. According to the United Nations, there are an estimated 1 million cluster bombs in Lebanon, especially in the south. The Lebanese economy also took a hard hit. Lebanon had expected a prosperous year for tourism. The economy was expected to grow between 5 to 6%, which was very high in comparison to previous years. However, today, Lebanon suffers under the weight of heavy debt, despite the aid that it received from donor countries at the Stockholm Conference. According to the government, the direct cost of the war is $1.75 billion. On the political level, UN Resolution 1701 resulted in the increased deployment of international emergency forces and the Lebanese army south of the Litani River, as well as the announcement that the area would become a demilitarized zone. However, a greater political hit to Lebanon was represented by the sharp divisions among the Lebanese over the outcome of the war. Some Lebanese consider the outcome a victory for Hezbollah against the greatest military power, or, at the least, Hezbollah prevented Israel from reoccupying Lebanon. Other Lebanese believe that the outcome of the war was that the Lebanese remained steadfast and nothing more. On the Israeli side, 158 soldiers were killed during the confrontations and 450 others were wounded. 1,500 Israeli civilians were also wounded. 3,000 Israelis were displaced, 2,000 homes were destroyed, and 9,000 homes were damaged. The Israeli government estimates that the economic cost of the war is $3.5 billion, 37% of which occurred after the war.
الحكومة الإسرائيلية ب 3.5 مليار دولار ونسبة 37% من الخسائر بعد الحرب.
The Shin Bet Security Service today lifted a gag order on its arrest last month of a Palestinian terrorist, Mohammed Soufi, who was involved in the abduction of IDF soldier Gilad Shalit 1 year ago. Meanwhile, Gilad Shalit's mother, Aviva, spoke out in public last night for the very first time. Aviva Shalit addressed thousands of people who attended a rally at the Mother's Park in Haifa to mark the first anniversary of the Second Lebanon War and to call for the release of the 3 Israeli hostages, Gilad Shalit, Ehud Goldwasser, and Eldad Regev. Shalit had a message for her son. She urged him to be strong and promised that she will not let another year pass without him. Recently said Aviva Shalit, there has been talk of the price we must pay to release you. I say, and every mother here knows, that no amount can be placed on the children we've carried in our wombs, given birth to, and raised by the sweat of our brows. In other news, the 30-day state of emergency declared by Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas following the Hamas takeover of Gaza expires at midnight tonight. The emergency government of Prime Minister Salam Fayyad has agreed to submit their resignations, but will stay on as a transitional government as the Palestinian Legislative Council is unable to convene due to the Hamas boycott of parliament. In the meantime, Fayyad is developing a comprehensive plan to reform the security, economy, and welfare of the West Bank in hope of preventing a collapse similar to what occurred in Gaza. The PA premier said that the first step will be to rein in factional gunmen.
It is a key mission of this government to, at long last, begin to put in place the vision of one authority and all guns and weapons under the purview of the authority and its official agencies, security agencies. No militias are allowed. And we'll go after any outlaw that remains and chooses to stay outside the stand. We have to bring matters under control. This may very well be our last chance. We need to be very serious about this, regardless of who they may be, which party they may belong to. They choose not to cooperate in this effort. They are a foe. We just cannot really be serious about building a state and at the same time accepting armed militias outside, operating with arms, doing whatever it is they want to do, whenever they want to do it, wherever they want to do it from. That just simply cannot be tolerated anymore.
Naif Hawatmeh, the founder of the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, may be visiting the territories next week for the first time in 40 years. This, according to Nabil Amar, an advisor to Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas. Hawatmeh intends on coming to Ramallah to participate in a meeting of the Central Council of the Palestine Liberation Organization as part of Mahmoud Abbas' efforts to unite the various Palestinian factions against Hamas. The Prime Minister's office confirms that the Palestinians have filed a request to permit the Hawatmeh visit to the West Bank, but Israel has yet to make a decision on this matter.
4:30 p.m. here in Gaza. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Al-Aqsa News. Ismail Haniyeh, the premier of the PA caretaker government, has called for a united Arab stand demanding the reopening of the Rafah terminal before thousands of stranded Palestinians and for ending international observation on it. Haniyeh's call came in a message to Amr Moussa, the Arab League Secretary General, on Saturday, in which he briefed the Arab official on the suffering of Palestinians as a result of the constant closure of all Gaza crossings, especially the Rafah terminal. He said that 11 trapped Palestinians have so far died at the crossing, and many others are likely to meet the same fate if the crossing remained closed. He said that the crossing should serve as a pure Egyptian-Palestinian border point with no international supervision or mediation. The Prime Minister of the so-called Palestinian emergency government, Salam Fayyad, has confiscated $7 million from a bank account belonging to the collaborated trend within Fateh fashion leader Mohammed Dahalan. According to the website of the Zionist paper Yed'ot Ahranot, Fateh sources accused Dahalan of mismanagement of funds, illegally accepting funds, and failure to handle the fight against Hamas. Mohammed Dahalan was the godfather of the collaborated trend mafia in the Gaza Strip before Hamas takeover of the Gaza Strip 2 weeks ago.
Despite the economic boycott that was imposed on the Palestinians by the West since Hamas's victory in the parliamentary elections, the town of Al-Shuyukh in the West Bank has succeeded to overcome its difficulties by relying on projects financed by wealthy residents. Residents of the town have been living in harmony despite their differences and their political orientations.
The Palestinian town of Al-Shuyukh is located on the top of Tal Mountain, which lies north of Hebron in the West Bank. It has prospered in spite of 1 year of economic boycotts imposed by the West against the Palestinian government that was led by Hamas, and despite the bloodshed between the Palestinian factions that were struggling over power.
No one can harm the unity of our people. Thank God we are as close as one family in Al-Shuyukh, despite our differences and political orientations.
The 10,000 residents of this town rely on construction projects, such as paving roads and building of schools, hospitals, and mosques. These projects are financed by wealthy residents. Most of Al-Shuyukh's residents voted for Hamas, which is reflected in its Hamas-dominated municipality. This, however, did not stop many wealthy Fateh members who live in the town from donating their money to finance construction projects.
The law allows Hamas to manage the town's municipality because they won the elections. No one can change this until the next election. Hamas has the right to manage the Palestinian Authority just like Fatah had done so for the past 10 years. If Hamas is given a chance to govern in these 4 years, then the results will speak for themselves.
Most of the town's residents belong to 3 large clans who dominate its political and social life. The backbone of its economy consists of workshops and stone, masonry, and other crafts. Residents say that they live like one big family and that no one can harm their unity regardless of their political differences. Some say that people can withstand the boycott, but after what happened in Gaza, it became clear that the promises they heard during the parliamentary elections would not materialize.
I can live without a salary, but I need to feel safe. I do not want to die, and I do not want my son to die. I can withstand hunger. That is not a problem. But you can't expect people to endure the boycott for extended periods without providing them with security.
Despite the disturbances that took place in Gaza last month, which isolated it from the West Bank, no acts of vengeance were committed by armed members of Fateh against Hamas's institutions, like what happened in other West Bank cities, though tensions still remain high.
His voice was not heard during the bombing of the Red Mosque. The Pakistani president, however, broke his silence yesterday to explain the violent path he chose. Pervez Musharraf expressed sadness for the casualties that occurred during the Red Mosque confrontations, but said that the attack was absolutely necessary.
We didn't have any other choice. We couldn't wait or negotiate, and the military attack was inevitable. I'm very saddened by the casualties and deaths that were a result of the fighting in the Red Mosque, but there were innocent women and children that needed to be rescued from the grip of extremists.
The Red Mosque, which became the center of intense conflict in Pakistan, held some clues that were revealed after the army took over. According to official sources, the prolonged resistance of the fortified in the mosque was credited to live ammunition found in the basement. The courtyard, on the other hand, has become a mass gravesite for 75 bodies. Meanwhile, other sources revealed that the death toll could exceed 1,000.
Answers were found behind these red walls as to the mystery of how hundreds of radical students and their leader were able to resist for so long. The Red Mosque held within its walls more than ways to worship. One corner of the building featured religious poetry, another a classroom, while many quarters were used to store first-class weaponry that only extremists can obtain. The dust left by deadly confrontations was cleared after a week, turning the Red Mosque, or what's left of it, into a mass gravesite for dozens of corpses.
So far, we have found 75 bodies of radical students. We have lost 11 martyred soldiers. Let what happened here be a final warning for anybody who's considering rebellion.
The general's threats did not reach the angry crowd that marched through the streets of Pakistan.
Musharraf is a criminal and a killer. He will be punished.
In the province of Punjab, residents marched during the funeral of the leader of the fortified, Ghazi Abdel Rashid, whose face was displayed in order to confirm his identity. The identity of others, however, remains unknown. Their bodies have decomposed, and they could no longer be identified except as the students, followers of Abdel Rashid. Regarding the political crisis in the Iraqi parliament, where certain Iraqi legislators called for the removal of Dr. Mashahedani as the head of the Iraqi parliament, Umar Abed Sattar, a representative from the Iraqi Accordance Front, said that they have not reached a solution on this case. This news comes after a committee assigned by the Iraqi Accordance Front met with a parliamentary committee to discuss Mashahedani's case. In a press conference, Abed Sattar said that the committee assigned by his party urged the council not to remove Mashahedani from office at this time. Abed Sattar added that the two committees will hold more meetings in the near future to try to solve this problem once and for all.
During the past few weeks, Iraq has witnessed political maneuvers at all levels in an attempt to overcome the growing challenges and crises facing the Iraqi government. It seems that the political gap between Iraq's main parliamentary blocs has widened, which led some parties to suspend their membership or totally withdraw from the government. This news has exacerbated the security situation and hampered efforts to move the political process forward. According to political sources, it is no coincidence that so many Iraqi parties decided to withdraw from the government at a time when the US military commanders in Iraq are planning to evaluate the success of the new security plan in the country. These political maneuvers come after some parliamentary blocs decided to reorganize their structures and re-evaluate their position towards the makeup of the government. In an attempt to prolong the reign of his government and attract the various political parties, Al-Maliki said that he intends to revise the entire makeup of his cabinet. Having said that, 13 ministers decided to boycott all parliamentary sessions, making it rather difficult for Al-Maliki's government to continue functioning. The Iraqi people need a government that unites them and serves their interests, and not a government that divides them and widens their differences. Today, al-Maliki was unable to keep his political partners in the government. The showdown between al-Maliki and the Sadr party intensified after the latter withdrew from the government. It is rather ironic that al-Maliki has won the election over Adil Abdel Mahdi with the help of the Sadr party, which gave al-Maliki the extra votes needed. Al-Maliki also failed to keep the National Dialogue Front inside his government. Meanwhile, the Iraqi Accordance Front continues to boycott all sessions of the government and the parliament. Al-Maliki's government, which was sworn in nearly 2 years ago, was unable to provide the basic services to its provinces, including those in the so-called secured areas. It seems that al-Maliki's government is incompetent to run Iraqi affairs, and it failed to fulfill the promises it made to its citizens. In addition, it failed to maintain security, achieve national reconciliation, broaden the political spectrum, and dismantle sectarian militias. Moreover, al-Maliki's government wants to form a quartet political front that is based on sectarian sharing in order to implement the gas and oil law, which, in its current context, does not serve the interests of the Iraqi people.
بأنه بصياغته الحالية لا يخدم مصالح الشعب العراقي.
Iran and the IAEA will hold a fresh round of talks on Tehran's nuclear program in Vienna on July 25th and 26th. Iran's ambassador to the IAEA, Aliasghar Soltanieh, said experts from the IAEA and Iran will work together over the next month to put together a working framework to have precise rules on the manner of inspecting the Natanz site. Mr. Soltanieh was here at the JNN newsroom hours ago to elaborate more.
We also try to fulfill some of the requests of the IAEA in order to show that we are determined to cooperate fully with the IAEA. One of them was the acceptance to revisit the heavy water research reactor in Iraq. The second one was to start discussion and try to conclude the facility attachment and safeguard approach for Natanz enrichment facility. That is, we are taking steps towards more organized and more efficient safeguard implementation in Natanz in a well-defined framework. We have tried during this meeting in Tehran to focus on the present situation, and if there are any ambiguities or requests from the agency to try to touch upon this and how to remedy if there are any difficulties. That is the reason that we have a meeting also, the follow-up meeting to be held in Vienna within 2 weeks.
In a related story, head of the IAEA, Mohammad El Baradei, who was in Thailand to hold talks on North Korea's nuclear installations, spoke on Iran's nuclear negotiations with the agency's officials.
It's the beginning of a process. I think we make some progress on some issues, like visiting some facility we will be going to. They accepted that an additional designation of inspectors. They have accepted that we will, agreed on a meeting in August to look into this issue of plutonium experiment there. So we are working toward, over time or in the next few months, I hope, being able to resolve this issue. So I should say we are inching forward. We are on the right track.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.